News Radio 840 WHAS. Good Sunday morning. Bob Sokoler, Louisville Real Estate Show, here with you to the top of the hour. Hope it's a good morning for you, folks. We've got an interesting show with a lot of interesting questions and information for you. Joining us here, and we always appreciate him being here, Chuck Crosby. He is the owner of the Crosby Law Offices. You can reach him at 499-6360. They, of course, do real estate closings. I was just over at his office this past week. But he also does a variety of other things, including wills and power of attorney. Those are important things. And also here, Brad Lawler, owner of Home Team Inspection Service. They come in as a team, and they are not only licensed to do inspections here in Louisville, but now also in Frankfort and Lexington. And Team Bug Out is a new member of Brad's stable, so to speak, where they can come out and they can do termite inspections and a variety of other things related to pest control. You can reach Brad at 844-411-TEAM. And my son Greg, who does our marketing, photography, so much more. He's here with us. And you can reach me, Bob Sokoler. That's the Sokoler team, Remax Properties East. We can help you get your home on the market and sold. We can plan down the road, whether it's this year, next year, or the years beyond. I come out with a free, no-obligation analysis. We can help. We can talk on the phone, or we can do it in person. It doesn't cost you for me to come out. Then we can talk about what the plans are. Coming up a little later in today's show, some house smells that you should never ignore. These are always interesting, and you might want to stick around for that. Just a quick update for you. Still in our Zoom mode, which means you send me an email, we'll read it on the air. You can send the email to bob@wesellouisville.com, and then just put the subject line radio question in the question itself in the actual email. We did a survey, homes sold year to date, just to let you know what the market's doing. You're probably hearing a variety of mixed things. In 2022, at this time of the year, we had 13,025 homes sold here in the greater Louisville area. As of this year, a year later, we've got 10,625 homes sold. That's a negative 18%, in case you're wondering what interest rates are doing to the market. Still, good news is that home prices have not fallen at this point, and predictions are showing flat or a little bit above. Also, something new that we want to talk about that we've been on the case for the past couple of months. There's some new Airbnb regulations that actually went into effect. Chuck has been following those, and you've got an update for us. What's actually new under these new, for anybody who's got an Airbnb or considering buying an Airbnb, this should be a bulletin coming across if you don't know already. Chuck?
Yeah, well, we've talked about this before and went a little more into depth as to what and why they might be doing this. But the rules have actually gone into force now. The basics are they've increased the fee for the license application to $250 from $100. A big thing that people have always tried to work in is an owner-occupied Airbnb. If it's a short-term rental, you want it to be owner-occupied. You just can't buy it, occupy it, and then put it up for rent. You actually have to live in it for 6 months. Also, if there's a carriage house, the big question is, would that also be considered owner occupied? At this point, my understanding is it might not be. There's a limit on the number of people, 12 occupants tops at a time, and the distance. If you've got, if they have to be 600 feet apart, but if there's already an area that has an Airbnb or a short-term rental, I keep calling them Airbnbs, within 600 foot, they're not going to take any further applications on that street. So they're trying to cut down the number. It still sounds to me like there's a lobby in the background.
It's a big lobby, Chuck. I don't know if we discussed in previous weeks what they just did in New York. Essentially, with the stroke of a pen, they deemed about 70% of all Airbnbs no longer legal short-term rentals. And a lot of what you just cited was going on. And their reasoning is they wanted to help give the hotels a boost and try to increase some rental properties because there's so few in New York City, and obviously inventory is scarce across the country. So I believe
at least they're being a little more honest about it. They're being honest about it and saying it. Down here, it's all this dog and pony show about we're trying to keep property values, whatever.
Well, I would suspect,
no coincidence, at least it's happening at the same time nationwide.
Yeah, no.
I would suspect I would suspect there are some people who live in neighborhoods who do not want an Airbnb.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, right.
Oh, my neighborhood.
Right.
Norton Commons is going through it. A couple of the buildings in here have made those regulations clear as well.
Right. But I don't see those people having quite the power that the other side of the equation does, namely the hotels.
Yep. Moving on. We've covered that one from one end to the other. We'll keep an eye on it if anything else changes. By the way, if you'd like to see a replay of the show and hear what we've just talked about, go to LouisvilleAnswers.com. That is LouisvilleAnswers.com. That's a redirect to our YouTube channel for this show. Also, if you want to see what buyers are saying about us and sellers are saying about us, go to LouisvilleZillow.com and LouisvilleGoogle.com. Those are redirects directly to Google and to Zillow. All right, over to Brad Lawler, Home Team Inspection. Craig wrote us an email. He's has a rental unit that he wants to put on the market. You know, it's the tie-in between Airbnb as a rental unit. He wants to put it on the market and sell. He said he's sending us in this email, the renter must have been smoking like a fiend inside nonstop. He's trying to do some paint, maybe even replace the carpet, and he's wondering, is there anything else that he can do to get rid of the smoking smell, knowing that it will devalue the property when the house goes on the market. That is a problem. Brad?
Yeah, it is a problem. So he's got a couple of things going on. I mean, one, nicotine stains are nearly impossible to scrub off. You can scrub them, but more likely you're going to have to seal those with a oil-based primer, oil-based sealer like Kills. That's going to seal in the nicotine so you can put a final coat on it. I know that their paint stores often have some additives that you can put into paint before you put it on that may help with some of the odor neutralization. But yeah, any of the soft surfaces, so if there's curtains in there, any fabrics, carpeting, all of that's going to hold the smells. Every porous surface, like your drywall, is going to be able to hold on to some of the smells. So really, from the standpoint of how do you get rid of it, one is probably going to be a repaint. You can air the place out, but that's going to take a while. So yeah, I would talk to the paint stores about what you might put in for odor neutralizing. Push comes to shove, you can always get a technically equipped carpet cleaning company to come in and do some of the deeper cleaning that they're able to do, a restoration type company. But
Brad, we're getting a lot of these questions about smokers. Do I remember correctly? Didn't you mention something about an ozone machine that might give assistance?
I've heard about the ozone machines. I've not seen that they work, though. I know there's a lot of people that talk about them. I've never seen one that's actually effective. I know that you can buy, ozonators or ozone, Ozium, I think they call it, even at the hardware store and the auto parts store. But all of those things, I think, are just going to cover up the smell for a short period of time. You're really going to have to remove all the particles that have gotten into all of the surfaces, and then not to mention the ductwork, because all of the dust that's in the ductwork, that's all holding on to smoke smells too. So that is going to be a case where duct cleaning is going to almost be mandatory.
Got it. We're moving on. Again, if you want to see a replay of the show, LouisvilleAnswers.com. Chuck, this is for you. Heather listens to our show all the time. She sent us an email. She's saying she believes the seller failed to disclose a material defect in the property. Then she goes on to say, can you explain what a material defect really is? So let's start with the second part of that first. So what is a material defect?
Material defect is going to be something more than a scratch in the wall or a leaky pipe. It's going to be a broken pipe, backed up sewage. It's going to be something significant where there's a real monetary damage to it, not cosmetic. Okay. So it's got to actually be something. You can, like with if you say, my roof leaked, and I fixed it, and it was just the little flashing, and that was fixed, no big deal. That's one thing. But if you say, my roof leaked a little bit and there's a gigantic hole, a cannonball sized hole up there, and you covered it over with tar paper, well, that's something altogether different.
Yeah, I like to quote Chuck a lot here and say, if you've known or should have known, it's one of those things that you can prove it. You got to disclose it.
Yeah, that's all there is to it.
Got it. We move on. And Greg, do you have a refrigerator in your garage in your house?
I do not.
Okay. A lot of us do. I do. And a lot of us have a concern if you're plugged into a GFCI outlet, right, Brad?
Oh, yes, sir.
So, because if that outlet trips, everything in that fridge is basically garbage.
Yeah, correct.
So Rachel had heard our show, and she says, I listen all the time, and I remember a long, long time ago hearing about something called a garage-ready fridge. Can you tell us more about that, she's asking? And I think this is 3 maybe years ago that we had this question or something like it about a garage ready fridge. What is that, and is that worth an investment?
So my understanding of the garage ready fridge is a system that has a little bit more insulation and a heavier duty compressor in it. It doesn't really change the way that the electricity works flowing through a GFCI. Oftentimes, I do think that they have a light on them though, some sort of an indicator light, I believe. I have a garage ready fridge. I don't have an indicator light on mine, but I think the newer versions do. But yeah, I think it's just more for the setup that it's, because even in cold times, you can freeze all of the contents of your refrigerator during the wintertime. But in a garage ready, you've got a little bit more insulation, so you're more likely to hold the correct temperatures and not have things freeze or essentially the compressor burn itself out, just trying to keep up with the heat in the garages. But the GFCI, I mean, just we've seen houses periodically that have the GFCI actually like a kitchen, but they've added an outlet in the garage, so you don't necessarily know that you've tripped it because it actually resets in the kitchen. So you really do have to be very aware of those GFCIs in the garages that those refrigerators are plugged into.
All right, very good. A reminder, we have a bi-monthly video that we send out on a variety of topics. If you want to see it, and we make it pretty simple, just go to www.wesellouisville.tv and sign up for those bi-monthly update videos. We're taking a break. When we come back, more of your questions, and we answer the question, what are the house smells you should never ignore? As we go to break, we are continuing to keep with us Chuck Crosby from the Crosby Law Offices. They do a great job at real estate closings, also landlord-tenant problems, evictions, appeals, variety of other things. You can reach Chuck at 499-6360. Also, Brad Lawler, who owns Home Team Inspection Service and Team Bug Out, which gets rid of those termites and other pesky little infiltrators. You can reach Brad and his team at 844-411-TEAM. My son Greg, who does our marketing photography, will stay with us as well. And if you're looking to possibly sell your home, I can help you. And we can also help you find a home, even in this tough market. If you're thinking about selling now or in the future, you can reach me, and we can do a free consult that come out. We talk about what the process is. My direct cell is 376-5483, or you can go to bobsellslouisville.com and just fill out the information and hit enter, and it will come to me. We're back in a moment on News Radio 840 WHAS. News Radio 840 WHAS, Bob Sokoler, the Louisville Real Estate Show. We are here with you till the top of the hour, folks. Continuing, Brad Lawler is with us, who's owner of Home Team Inspection Service and Team Bug Out. So he takes care of inspections, not only of the house, but also of the bugs and gets rid of them. 844-411-TEAM is his direct number. Chuck Crosby is continuing with us. He is the owner of the Crosby Law Office, and he not only does a great job at closings, but he also does a variety of other things, including commissioner sales, foreclosure defense, wills, and power of attorney. You can reach Chuck on his cell phone at 499-6360. And my son Greg, who does our marketing, photography, so much more, continues with us. And you can reach me if you're thinking about selling your home now or in the future. I would love to be able to at least talk to you, help you, come up with some plans for you, what you need to do, maybe not do a whole lot, just get it on the market and sold, whether it's now or in the next couple of years. You can reach me at 376-5483 or go to bobsellslouisville.com. Well, we're going to be indoors a lot more in the next number of months as things get colder, and there are smells that we want to be aware of. And Brad, I'm asking you, and also Chuck and Greg can jump in here as well. One of the things that we need to be worried about if you smell gas in your house. So what does that smell like, Brad?
Rotten eggs.
Yeah. That's added, right? Because it's not natural gas.
Natural gas doesn't have an odor. They actually add that chemical to it. So that
I'm glad we clarified, because I was going to say, was it my dogs or my kids? There's a lot of gaseous odors coming from them as well that smell.
That's a natural additive.
It's mercaptan. Yeah, that's the natural. This is added mercaptan, which a musty smell in the house, pungent odor. What would that be an indication of, Brad?
I mean, musty. It's probably some sort of dampness. Might indicate mold. I don't want to get too far down. The mold
it's okay.
It's
my gym bag. It's okay. You can tell everybody.
Yeah, it could be other things like that. It could be books that you got out of somebody's attic that you suddenly you put in your house, and we had that happen here a few months ago.
Also, gross bathroom smells in the house. What is that an indication of? It could be toxic as well as potentially explosive, right? Greg, stop laughing.
No, you're feeding me. I mean,
I know.
Listen, Brad's got great answers. I'm just saying.
I'm hoping that the vent fan is working there, but Greg's thinking about something else.
Things. Yeah, right. No, but but they can be toxic. Okay, we'll move on. Smoke-like
I've got
smell.
a story about my daughter being constipated the other night.
All right, let's not go there. Yeah,
but it's all in good fun.
All right. So, and I love the fact that Chuck has been keeping a very straight face on this. So good for you.
Chuck has no smells, no odors, just a beautiful mustache and mustache wax.
Yeah.
I would tell you that, yes, our house does smell quite lovely.
Okay, good. Smoke-like smell indicating that maybe something is wrong, something burning possibly, as light fixture. What do you think on that?
It could be anything there. Yeah, electrical fire, when wires overheat in like an outlet, it's definitely that burned plastic smell. It's a very different kind of smell than just burning. But yeah, I guess you never want to smell anything that smells like smoke.
Right.
In your house.
Fishy smell could be potentially acrylic or rubber or another material around some areas melting in an appliance. So be careful there.
Dog smell. Sack of potatoes.
Or it could be a sack of potatoes. Yes. Dirty dog smell in the house may also mean that you need to get your pets washed, but it could mean something else, Brad. Creatures.
Well, I mean, yeah, you've got some creatures that will take up residence. Yeah. Raccoons and other things in crawl spaces and attics. They have a funky smell like that.
Yeah, we talked about the cigarette smell earlier in the show, but what if we smell an old cigarette smell all of a sudden in the house? There's secondhand smoke, but it's something else, maybe on countertops, bed linens, and other things. It could have, I've read 11 carcinogens associated with that kind of a dust if we smell that in the house. Did you hear that?
Oh, no.
Ammonia smell, we'll wrap this up quickly. Ammonia smell in the house, it could be something in the way of urine from a cat or a dog, but it could be a critter that actually died in your walls.
Yeah, mice in particular.
Mm-hmm. Sweaty gym smell in the house is the final one. We don't want to smell. Yeah, Greg.
Yeah, I mean, that's my gym bag every day. You got to get one of those antimicrobial bags. Make sure you wash it weekly. It's a hassle, but you should do it.
But in this case, a little more serious. There's actually bacteria possibly growing in your HVAC system that you need to take and check. So those are some of
those condensate pans will hold water and they start smelling like that. Yeah,
that could be a real problem. Yeah. All right. So those are some of the things that we talk about in house smells that you never should ignore. Back over to Chuck Crosby of the Crosby Law Office. Andrew sent us an email. Are there any zoning restrictions or regulations that could affect the use of his property? He's just asking this blanket statement here, Chuck. How would he find out where to learn about them, and if there are in like, for example, can he have chickens in his backyard?
Yeah, understood. Yeah. There's all kinds of great maps. Logic, LOJIC. You can go there. That'll tell you what your property is zoned. You can then take that information over to the Louisville Metro Planning and Zoning, and they have all the different zoning definitions, what can be done. It's pretty interesting.
Okay. So this next question is actually for all three of you. Elizabeth buying a new construction home, and she sent us an email. Remember, this is new construction, asking, should she get a home inspection and is it mandatory? So we'll start with Greg on this. So you recently bought your home, had it built, new construction.
Yeah.
Did you have a home inspection?
Of course, and we deal with a lot of new construction cases in particular, and one of the biggest things we recommend is to get a home inspection at the end of the term before you take the keys.
Yeah, when you're doing your walkthrough or before
you sign that paperwork, make sure you do a walkthrough, you do a blue tape walkthrough. Ensure these builders, they have licensed inspectors come through and do certain things, but you want your own independent inspector to come through just so that you have things noted. It might not be things that need to be structural or safety issues, but you're going to have them noted. If things go wrong in the future, you can go back on these things and have the builder say, hey, listen, this is symptomatic of this. We didn't ask for it, but you can get some leverage there.
So, Chuck, is it mandatory to have a home inspection?
No.
Another part of Elizabeth's question.
No, it's not mandatory, but it's a great idea. I mean, and it's not just, 9 times out of 10, you're going to pick up little things. They know about this. Builders in Louisville, they're a great group of guys. However, there are some flippers. There are some people who do, refurbishing houses and then selling them. And they may not use the best guides. I ran into a case about 2 years ago where the plumber wasn't licensed. He had worked for a plumber for a little bit as a helper, and he had gone into other houses, taken the stickers off the hot water heaters and things like that, and was reusing them. on things he did. So, that doesn't happen often, but it happens.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like my wife always points out, the likelihood of my plug killing me is very small, but never zero.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. And we should point out, Brad, so with new construction, and there are a lot of builders who will say, oh, listen, I've got all these inspectors, Greg, right, Chuck's right. But having your own inspector it really is a smart move, especially if you're buying a new house. What would you be looking for in new construction that may be overlooked?
So keep in mind that these code inspectors that they're talking about have very, very limited scope. So you're going to have a plumbing inspector, you're going to have an electrical inspector come out. They're only looking at those systems. Builders, just like Chuck said, the builders in the city are generally great folks. The challenge is when one subcontractor's work meets another subcontractor's work. Okay. For instance, your HVAC guy comes out, he puts all the ductwork in, the flooring guy comes out behind him and forgets to cut the holes in the floor to allow the duct to blow air into a room. We see that all the time. We have seen homes that they didn't insulate certain parts of the attic. I have a classic picture in one of the presentations, the training presentation that I do, that shows a home that was family lived in for 6 years, that they were hot in the summer, cold in the winter, and HVAC guys couldn't figure it out, and they had zero insulation in the attic. And this is about a $600,000 home. The other problem that you run into is sometimes those code stickers are put on to, say, a water heater that then is moved after the plumbing inspector looked at it, and it's moved to another part and it's installed incorrectly. We see those every once in a while when changes are made. The big one, though, is the grading outside the home. A lot of times you end up with final grades that have sod built up over the level of, say, your basement windows, or we will always suggest a sewer line inspection for new construction, because the sewer lines oftentimes get damaged by the heavy equipment that runs over the yard during that phase of construction. And unfortunately, those type problems don't manifest themselves. They don't show up, for potentially years later. But, to Greg's point too, not only, do we recommend the inspection, even if it just becomes a punch list for the builder. But also a lot of people will have the inspector come back before the warranty period ends, so you do it at like the 11-month mark, so you can catch those things that have gotten bad. Like we see a lot of problems with the way that siding is installed, and sealants that fail, window seals that thermal seals go bad, so a lot of those things are picked up during those 11-month inspections. But obviously I'm a home inspector. I always recommend inspection, but new construction, there are a lot of small problems. They're material problems that you want to correct before you take ownership of it.
We move back over to Chuck Crosby of the Crosby Law Office. So Amy asks a very interesting question. Chuck, Brad, Greg, we use a lot of terms on the air. Sometimes we don't go into the details of what those terms really are, because we hear them every day, but we sometimes our listeners are curious, what do they mean? So Chuck, Amy is saying she's heard us talk about easements on the radio. She's wondering, what exactly is an easement, and how does it affect the property or property value of the home she's thinking about buying?
Well, easements, I can't tell you about property value. That's more an appraiser or a realtor's bailiwick. But an easement is permission to use the property. Keep in mind, we always hear that possession is 9/10 of the law. Well, if you imagine a bundle of sticks, say 10 sticks that create the ownership of a piece of property, possession is probably 9 of those sticks. It's an awful lot. But an easement, it doesn't give them the property. You still own the property, but you're allowing them to use the property. Things like utilities. There's always utility easements. You give a utility easement to LG&E. It lets them come through and dig the place up and put their lines in and all that kind of thing. Also prevents you from building on top of it and things like that. So obviously a utility easement is going to be a great thing. But there are other types of easements. Let's say that your property is behind another property and you need to get across it to get to a road. Well, you can get an easement across the property for ingress and egress, that kind of thing. So there's all kinds of easements, but in short, it's just permission to use the property for a stated purpose. Now you can have easements that last forever. forever that run with the land, or you can have them for a limited period of time. Like I'm going to build a house back there. You're going to let me use this particular part of your property to drive my trucks over to get the materials in. That would typically have an ending date. But a utility easement, not typically. It runs with the land, we call it.
And you can negotiate a price for that easement?
Yeah, a lot of times you can. Yeah. Let's say that you don't do a survey when you're putting in a pool and your pool sits over a little bit. Well, chances are your neighbor's going to say, hey, how much is it worth to you to have an easement to keep your pool on this property? And then go from there.
Yep. And just remember, the other question or part of this real quickly, I mean, as we wrap up, is the fact that it won't have any effect or impact on the value of your property as long as it doesn't prohibit or encroach on the enjoyment and use of the property. I think that's, Greg, you would think that's probably the way to sum it up, right?
Yeah, unless you actually, here in my neighborhood, Norton Commons, or any multi-unit development that have zero lot lines, it's customary for, you can have a negotiated price, but to ease your inactive side. So a lot of the planning codes will have an active and inactive side of your home, one where you have like a walkout or a side porch. And it's customary in this neighborhood, at least, to ease that over to your neighbor so that you can run a fence up to the side of their home, or you can, have fair use of that side of the yard. Now, however, I have seen disputes where they don't run with the land, and say your neighbor, let's say I have a fence connected to my neighbor's home and my neighbor sells. I have seen instances where the new owner will not, they'll not agree to this new easement, and they'll take ownership, and they'll give you a notice on them wanting to rip your fence out and or have it, redone on your lot line. And now that comes to, we always talk about baking a pie and being a good neighbor and negotiating, but I've seen it go to legalese where there's disputes that happen.
We call that Chuck Crosby diplomacy.
Absolutely.
But whenever you do an easement by hug and handshake, that sort of diplomacy may not work in the future.
You need it in writing. We got you.
Always. A short pencil is better than a long memory.
And Chuck Crosby is just the guy to have that short pencil in hand and ready to help you. As we wrap up, our thanks to Chuck at the Crosby Law Offices, 499-6360. Also, Brad Lawler, owner of Home Team Inspection Service, 844-411-TEAM. My thanks to my son, Greg, who I'm very proud of, does our marketing photography. And if you're thinking of selling, folks, anytime you can reach out to me for this year, next year, beyond. Free, no obligation analysis. We can talk by phone or in person. Really, I'm more than happy to come out. You can reach me 376-5483 or go to bobsellslouisville.com. We are out of time. See you next Sunday on News Radio 840 WHAS.